The NFL 2024 draft is only 24 days away. Fantasy football drafts are heating up, and with that comes your rookie mocks. Tonight, we're doing a rookie mock. There are questions to be answered. What players are rising? What players are falling? And why? Welcome to Club Fantasy FFL. Welcome to Mocking with the Stars. Welcome back to Mocking with the Stars. We have my guy, Chris Battlestyle, at FF Chris B over there on Twitter. And, of course, you can hit me up at FantasyJ77 on Twitter. But let's talk about the star of the night. He is the head of content at the Dynasty Nerds, one of the guys I have looked up to in the fantasy space since I got into it, and a self-proclaimed liar because he said he was going to do 10 trades in a day, and he only did 7. You can hit him up at Dynasty Price. Mr. Garret Price, how are you tonight, sir?
The worst part is, sneak peek behind the scenes, I lied twice, actually. I did 8. I forgot about one of them.
So you lied about your lie.
I even lied about my lie. Yeah.
Wow. Ruthless. Chris, how are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing great. But 10 trades in a day, man, that's a big ask, man. Well, I'm sure once you got around to 7, your league mates are probably like, all right, let's kind of put him in a corner and not let him meet his goal here.
Oh, I think he was doing these over multiple leagues, number one. And number two, they were all dynasty leagues.
Oh, all right. I got you. That's tall ass, tall
order.
Helps.
Still tough, but it helps. Yeah.
And his good buddy Jared was giving him hell. I think Jared's probably the reason he didn't get to 10.
That in the honeydew list that I forgot around 9:00 that night that I didn't get finished and needed to get done. You. So that was the other thing that held me up.
Chat is already going off. We got our very own TJ Equinox in the house. Shy's in the house. Ben is in the house. Second most handsome nerd on the cast. Do we want to ask who the first is?
We all know who it is. It's absolutely Matt O'Hara.
Yeah, okay.
Matt O'Hara.
It's Matt.
Look. He doesn't traverse the Twitter streets much. He likes to keep himself low key. But if you've ever seen the show or met him at the expo or something like that, you're like it's not even one of those things where I can kind of tongue in cheek joke about it. Like, oh yeah, no, he's far and away the most handsome and the best voice. Some people just have it all.
Well, Rich can't have everything.
That's right.
That's what I just heard. Before we get into the mock tonight, let's talk about some news over the weekend. Rasheed Rice, bad situation all around. Garrett, what are we doing with Rasheed Rice in fantasy football? I know all of the information is not in at this point. There was a great thread put out by Drew Davenport about what could be, what should be, or what, and all that. What is your immediate thoughts over the Rasheed Rice situation? What are you doing with him in Dynasty?
Yeah, I'm trying my best not to have a knee-jerk reaction to the situation. It's easy to want to panic sell a guy like Rasheed Rice, but he's primed for a really big season. Did a lot as a rookie. I think it's just a strong hold situation because I don't want to necessarily go out and buy and then lose out on something, but I don't want to sell low either. So unfortunately, the best action is inaction on this case until we get more information, in my opinion.
Yeah, my opinion is the same. I think I am a hold right now. Chris, anything to add to that? What is your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm probably with you guys. I'm holding Rasheed Rice. If there's a piece that I'm moving on that offense, I might be looking at possibly shipping off Marquise Brown. Maybe his value gets a bit of a bump with all this news that's in the Rasheed Rice camp. Not a good look, but like Garrett said, man, if you're selling him now, you're selling him at a discount.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, either one of you, do you think it's a sell window for Hollywood Brown, just trying to capitalize a little bit on the Rasheed Rice questions? Chris, you answered that question. Garrett, anything on selling Hollywood at this point?
It all depends on what your league mates do. Overall, I like Hollywood Brown. I think it's a good fit. I don't want to give him away cheap, but If people are willing to overpay now panicking because of Rice, well, sure, you want to give me plus what I think he's worth? Oh, any piece on any of my rosters is available at any time if you want to give me more than they're worth.
I like it.
Yeah, as I say, I love that. And that leads me to the next point. I always say draft for value, trade for need. Garrett, what is something you would tell maybe not a brand new player, but a newer player to Dynasty when it comes to the rookie draft? What's your best rookie draft advice?
My best rookie draft advice is watch all 22 tape. I think for specifically the running backs, I think it's really, really difficult. I don't want to say impossible, but bordering on impossible to really get a feel for a running back's vision and their feel for the scheme without the all 22 tape. Just because of the angle of it, you can't really see what they're seeing. So I think one of the best things you can do, and maybe I should even take it a step further, if you don't have a basic concept of zone blocking schemes, gap schemes, different things like that, at least you don't have to be an expert, but at least get familiar with some of the basics in those schemes. So that way, when guys are making certain movements, you understand that they either did it correctly or maybe they missed something there. And we don't know all the information, but we can usually have a pretty good feel and a pretty good understanding of what they're doing. So watch all 22 tape, especially for those running backs.
Real quick, Zion, you did not miss. We are just fixing to start this mock up here in just a minute, so you did not miss the mock. But Ben has a great poll question, and you can true false this in the chat. Garrett should rock a shaved head. I don't know that that's I'm going to go false here.
You're going to go false?
Yeah, I'm going to go false. I don't think you should rock any kind of faded, shaved, anything, buzzed, any of that. You should leave it like it is. I don't think that helmet would fit right if you didn't. Chris, any thoughts on Garrett shaving his head?
No, I'm team no beard, Garrett. If you want to go no beard, I'm good with you keeping your hair, man. I'm team hair, so it's a little versatile up top. If you want to, going out, you want to clean it up, stuff like that. But team no beard, I'm good with, brother.
Let's get to mocking with the stars tonight. This is Garret Price from the Dynasty Nerds, the all 22 tape that he was just talking about. You can go look at on Dynasty Nerds, by the way. So go make sure you check that out. Tonight's mock is a 4-round 1 QB because Garrett loves Superflex. So we're going to put him out of his comfort zone with a 1 QB, no tight end premium. And we are going to get this mock started now. Shia LaBeouf is on the clock. It is a 1-minute clock. Hopefully these guys take their time a little bit and we get to talk about some of these picks that are happening. Let me bring the mock up and get us looking pretty right here. We got Garrett. Oh, there it is. There it is. Garrett looking pretty in the corner. Ben is in the chat. Love you, Garrett. The head, bald head, thick beard knocks Matt out of number 1. Wow. They are just, listen, Ben is on the Dynasty Nerds. He's on the round table right now. He hasn't said anything about Rich, though. And I like that. Leave Rich alone.
Look, thick beard, thick bear. I'm good with either one. Either one.
Yeah. Let me get in this chat and let them know that we are started already because evidently we can't get people in here whenever they want.
Shai's not ready.
They want to be in here and then they can't get to mocking. Well, let's you know what? Screw them. I'm just going to let them know that we are starting. They should have already got the alert. That's on them.
Lad McConkey
101.
Yeah, okay. Let's stop with the spicy takes here.
To the moon.
I so bad want to go in there and fix that. I should, but we're gonna leave it alone. Let's Garrett. What should be the 101 is Marvin Harrison Jr. in this draft, correct or not?
That is correct. That is a true statement.
That is a true statement. Okay. Is he the only can't miss prospect that we know of right now in this draft?
I do have him in a tier of his own. I can understand people talking about Neighbors and Odunze. Both those guys are fantastic players. Like, I'll put the top of this class up against any top wide receiver class that we've had over the past couple of decades. I think it matches up very nicely, if not better than all of them. So I don't think any of those other players are bad. But Marvin Harrison Jr. is that guy. We've known that for a long time. So I'm still all in on Marvin Harrison. We get to this time of year, we get bored. We want to talk about other things and move guys way up or way down. I heard the other day somebody has Marvin Harrison 4th or 5th on their board. Like it can get silly. But all that being said, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the guy.
That feels like this just to be different.
Yeah. Clickbait stuff.
Clickbait, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it works. I looked at it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, who are the 3 guys that you could possibly put above Marvin Harrison to put him at 4? I mean, you got Neighbors, Odunze, and who would
Lad
that
McConkey.
Third? Yeah, Lad McConkey.
Yeah, apparently McConkey.
Okay.
I would probably have taken Brock Bowers there if the 3 wide receivers went 1, 2, 3 before I took the wide receiver 4 or the running back 1 with the 1 quarterback. I'm going to fade the quarterback into oblivion unless there's a value there in the 3rd or possibly 4th. But, you know, I'll take a Dunze at the 104 with Lad McConkey going at 101 all day.
Yeah, Zion put it in here. Landing spot is going to matter. Maybe not so much for like the Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison's, but it's going to matter for 99% of the players that get drafted, especially the ones we give a damn about. Is right, Garrett? Or am I wrong?
No. I mean, it's all part of the equation. For me, overall, typically I am talent over situation, but that's not to say that situation and landing spot doesn't play a role in this. We've seen great players that have had to sit or have had down years because of poor quarterback play or whatever it is. So it's not – I don't want to overemphasize or underemphasize it. It's part of the equation, but it's not the only piece of the puzzle.
So with that, when you're breaking down or you're stuck between two players in your draft or when you're building out your rankings, do you weigh draft capital or draft landing spot more over the other? Like which one do you have higher in your toolbox there?
Yeah, I mean it's got to be on some sort of scale because even if I love the landing spot, if a guy is taken in the 6th round versus a guy in the 3rd round, like I have to. You're
going to outweigh it, yeah.
Right, but all things being kind of equal. I do tend to like, especially with the later round guys, like once we get past round 4, I don't really care that much anymore if you're around 4 or around 7. Like it's day 3. You're a day 3 guy. So that's kind of when I'll start factoring landing spot a little higher than draft capital. But if you're a day 2 guy or obviously a round 1 guy, that's going to weigh pretty heavily.
Oh, you're muted, Gator.
God dang it, rookie! In this first round, I know you're fixing to come up here, but at what point in this first round would you be looking? Again, 1 quarterback looking to trade back or out of the pick altogether.
I think right around the 1-6 is where I'm looking to trade back because I think a lot of those receivers and guys at some of the other positions even are fairly similar as far as projected, where I have them, projected draft capital. So and that's kind of why I took a little bit later because to me, the guys that I'm going to get at 1-6, 1-7 are going to be pretty similar to how I value the guys at 111 and 112. So that's kind of the spot there where I'd be looking to trade back.
Chris, at what point are you looking to trade back? Are you at the same with that 1-6, 1-7? Is it a little bit further back for you? I know when it comes to a super flex, we're looking more like that 1-8, 1-10 area. But in a 1 quarterback, is it that 1-6? Is it that 1-7 area?
Yeah, it is for me as well. Right at that tier break with the 3 wide receivers. If you're rolling with the tight end premium, you got Brock Bowers there, and then you got the Thomas Mitchell, not to speak out of turn with players that are still on the board, but the other chunk of wide receivers there. And then you're breaking into the running backs. I got all those guys like Garrett clumped in to the same spot. So moving back from the 1-6 to go back, maybe pick up another first, a couple of seconds, I'm going to end up with a nice draft at the end of it. So right in that spot is the sweet spot for me to move back.
Yeah. So if we
and
take
I guess
out, go ahead.
I
Garrett.
guess I spoke incorrectly because I forgot about Lad McConkey going 1-1. So 1-5, 1-6.
I was just gonna go there. If we take out Lad McConkey, we're looking at,
Right.
Harrison, Neighbors, Odunze, Bowers. Is that where the cutoff is? Those four, and then let's look at possibly. So now we're looking at that 1-5, 1-6. Okay, let's move back. Let's gain some draft capital. Let's go ahead and get 2 or 3 seconds, and get this clump of wide receivers and have multiple shots. Is that how we both, how all 3 of us feeling on that?
Yeah, that's how I'm viewing it from that angle. Maybe even, picking up a player that you think could go off this season and attach it to a first or something like that. Something you can maybe go steal off someone else's roster. Doesn't necessarily have to be draft picks that you're getting back in full. If you can attach, if you're moving back from the 1-5 and you can get the 1-11 plus maybe sneaky wide receiver 2 in there, and maybe someone that someone's low on, I'd make that kind of trade all day.
So we had our first running back go off with Garrett, who evidently RB1 for Garrett, RB1 for myself, and that's Trey Benson out of FSU. I don't know what kind of draft capital does he have to have in the NFL draft in order for you to go ahead and say, yes, I'm taking him at 111, and even in one quarterback.
Yeah, it was interesting that Trey Benson ended up going here. I didn't necessarily anticipate the quarterbacks going as high as they did. So for me, this is similar range that I would be considering taking him in super flex leagues. Like I'm looking at the end of the first round to take the RB1 off the board. And so the fact that even in a 1 QB league that I was able to still get him here at 111. So I feel pretty good about that. But I anticipate mid to late round, second round draft capital. If not, and a guy like Marshawn Lloyd or Jonathan Brooks gets the second round draft capital, then that might be enough to sway me to move him up. But in today's NFL, third round draft capital for a running back is still very good draft capital. So it wouldn't be a death sentence at all for Trey Benson to go into the third, and he still could prove value here at this point. That would just be a little bit more landing spot dependent. Is it one of those clear paths to touches, or is it one of those where he's going to really have to fight for it?
Yeah, I'm wondering, landing spot is definitely going to matter for every single one of these running backs. I do wonder about Jaylen Wright, though. Where do you think Jaylen Wright is going to end up? Late second round in rookie drafts. Does he go in the second round, or sorry, mid-second round in rookie drafts? Does he go in the second round? Do you feel like he goes in the second round, or is he moving on to that third round for you in the NFL, Garrett?
NFL draft, I think he's probably a third round guy. That's where I have him right now. In a rookie drafts, though, Jaylen Wright, I think he's going to go in one quarterback. I think he could go. Yep, that's what I was going to say. Anytime now. And I think this is roughly the same range that he'll go in those super flex leagues, because we've already seen 3 quarterbacks off the board. So the amount of quarterbacks isn't too drastically different in what we have right now compared to super flex leagues.
Chris, you are on the clock, so I'm going to go ahead and recap the first round, and then I'm going to let you ask your questions or responses to the questions I've already asked. Here we had Lad McConkey go 1-1. I think Shiloh was actually like at 1-8, and then somebody had to jump out, so he jumped over. So maybe he had his cue set, whatever. We had Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze, Brock Bowers, Brian Thomas Jr., Adonai Mitchell, which I know Garrett was really high on Adonai Mitchell in his hands and his movements as far as a wide receiver. Then strikingly at the 1-8, first quarterback off the board, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels to follow him, Xavier Worthy, Dynasty Price, Mr. Garret Price himself takes Trey Benson, the first running back off the board. And then we had Tony Franklin out of Oregon, who seems to be the guy that, no matter what right now, if you're sitting in that 112 spot, you were taking Franklin. Period. The end. You have no other options. Chris?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you can go running back there. I wouldn't be mad if you picked a running back over Troy Franklin at the run 12. There's going to be wide receivers that are going to be labeled as flag planted guys that guys are going to want on their roster. Guys were comfortable reaching for at that spot as well. Troy Franklin was hurt by his combine. He came out and said he was a bit under the weather. He wasn't feeling that great during that whole ordeal. And then he came out in his pro day and he looked sharp in his pro day. On film, he shows it. He's a guy that can ball. If he can land on a team that's going to utilize his skill sets, I'm still hoping for the Chiefs for Troy Franklin. He can be one of those wide receivers that moves up from the 112 spot to the 19, 18 for rookie draft. So I mean, I don't hate the pick at all at 112.
Garrett, we've hinted or talked about the Benson pick that you picked. Your RB1, my RB1, but depending on who you talk to, it could be anybody from Allen to Brooks to Benson to Lloyd. I've even seen Blake Corum as RB1. But we had a question over on Twitter yesterday that Fizzle Dollars put out there. And he says, with this RB class not having a true and clear number one, what is your strategy for this RB class when it comes to drafting before the NFL draft? So basically you're doing your rookie draft now. Is it film? Is it, what you've seen as far as film and then go into your nerd score? Or is it what you see in the combine? Or is it what you see in the pro days? Or is it a combination of all of this?
I think you do yourself a disservice if you don't take in as much information as possible. So I do. I think you need to consult as many sources as possible. But for me, at the end of the day, what's going to be the leader, what's going to be the driver of it is going to be the film stuff for me. I'm a film guy by nature, with the college background and things like that. Like that's my lane. That's where I feel comfortable. Other people, it's analytics, which there's nothing wrong with that. But find what you're comfortable. Find what you've had success with. Some people are much higher on production. Some people are like, there's a lot of different ways people go about it. And there's not one that's inherently better than the other, as long as it leads you to success over time. It looks like I'm back up here. Ooh.
Yeah, you are back up on the clock. So I'm going to let Chris answer the same question, Chris, if you don't mind.
Yeah, and knowledge is power. Garrett's right, man. If you're drafting before the NFL draft, you're gonna want to gather as much information as you can. So, like you talked about at the beginning, Gator, everyone we know all the hot names. We know the Marvin Harrison's neighbors, Odunze's. If you're drafting pre-NFL draft, getting as much information you can so you can steal the good value players in the third and the fourth rounds of your rookie drafts is only going to do you well. So just go to dynastynerds.com, go to Club FFL and just gather as much information as you can. Watch the tape, look at the analytics, follow the combines, the pro days, gather it all and just hammer your rookie drafts with confidence.
Yeah, we run through this second round real quick. We had Roman Wilson, Drake May, Jaylen Wright, Brooks, Ricky Pearsall, Marshawn Lloyd, Xavier Legette, Jatavion Sanders, Blake Corum, Breland Allen, Malachi Corley. I want to come back to this, Garrett, and then we had the Keon Coleman pick at the 212 spot there. Malachi Corley, 215, 5'11", ran at 4.46 at the combine, I believe it was. He's somebody that I had in the show notes originally that I took out that I just wanted to kind of touch on a little bit because this is one of the great things about having somebody like you on is every other show in the world is talking about these top 12, maybe even the top 13, right? But we're not diving deep enough into these, Malachi Corleys, the Keon Colemans, the Jatavion Sanders guys, and then of course these guys that are going to come up in this third and fourth round. Talk to me about Malachi Corley. What do you like about him? What are you seeing on tape that it just stands out that, yes, this is the guy that I want to take as 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, wide receiver 12 right here?
Yeah, I'm excited. He's one guy that I've seen a little bit of his tape, and I haven't done my total deep dive yet. So some of it's just on speculation from what I've seen and what I know traditionally I value. But this guy is a yak monster. I mean, yards after the catch, he's built like a running back. And from what I've seen, he's one of those players that, had he decided to go the route of a running back, he might have been able to be an NFL prospect at the running back position as well. So I value guys that can do things after the catch. He's one of those guys. His hands seem really solid. He's a good route runner. He's an explosive player. And he's a guy that just kind of fits what we want for fantasy football. So I really, overall, like I said, I haven't done the deep dive yet, but what I've seen in clips and one full game that I've watched, I really like.
Chris, are you on the same mindset of Malachi Corley is gonna be? He's got the size of the running back. Can he produce with the NFL game?
Yeah, I think so, man. Garret touched on it perfectly. He's just a yak monster. He was targeted heavily at Western Kentucky. He's personally my wide receiver 7. I got him as wide receiver 7 in the class right now. So I'm very high on Malachi Corley coming in. He can do a lot of the things better than a lot of these maybe bigger body prototypical wide receivers can do coming in to the NFL. It's a loaded wide receiver class, so there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to see some kind of volume at the next level with the amount of talent that's available here. But Malachi Corley, absolutely do-it-all wide receiver that I'm looking to invest heavily in.
The 5'11" height doesn't worry either one of you when it comes to him.
Not in the new NFL, baby.
Not in the new NFL. Not in the new NFL. Not in the new flag football league. Okay, I got it. Oh, my Lord. I can't believe you said that. Then we had Keon Coleman go right after. I don't know what to make of Keon Coleman. I mean, before he transferred from Florida State, he looked really good. Of course, they've had quarterback issues, quarterback injuries. Garret, is Keon Coleman somebody that anybody should be targeting at this point, or is he Kelvin Benjamin?
I think at this point, yeah. I mean, for me, once I get past midway through the second round, I don't care about floor anymore. Like, that goes completely out the window for me. I'm all about ceiling at that point. And so with a guy like Keon Coleman, the floor is pretty low, but the ceiling's pretty high. You have that size, you have that athletic ability, you have this ability to be able to catch passes. Like, there's a lot to like there with him. So while there's risk involved, I think the ceiling is really high. So I think he's going to be a second or third round pick in the NFL draft. And I think you get a day 2 guy at pick 212. I think that's a good value.
I want to go back into the first round real quick and ask about a wide receiver. That is actually my cousin that is drafting Hank's 5150 there at number 6. He is the one that actually got me into fantasy football, actually got me into my first real league. So thank you, Tom, for doing that. But Garret, I want to send this to you, and then I want Chris's input as well on this, because I've asked this question before. But Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU, is he a one-trick pony? One-trick pony skill set? I mean, it's just like, it seems like he can do one thing. We saw LSU try to make him a possession receiver for the first 2 years. I think he had like 63 receptions, like 700 yards total in those 2 years. And then last year, they decided to let him be a field stretcher, a little over 1,000 yards, a little over 100 receptions. Is he a one-trick pony? Is this the guy that only is going to be a field stretcher in the NFL, or can he possibly make his game a possession plus?
I think that's where he's going to have the most success, is in that kind of role. I don't want to limit the guy and say that he can't do more than that, but that is, I think, the most logical route for his success. Watching his tape, I saw a decent amount of good. I didn't see a lot of great in his game. So that's why, when people are locked him in as the consensus wide receiver 4, I'm not quite there. I don't think it's a bad pick by any stretch of the imagination, but he's somebody that I think for fantasy football purposes, I just have a hard time ever seeing a route where he's his team's wide receiver 1. And obviously there's only a few situations where you can be a wide receiver 2 on your NFL team and still be, a top 15 wide receiver for fantasy. That just doesn't happen too often. So I think his ceiling is a little bit capped because of that. And so for me, that's why I'm great with trading down there, because if people want to take him at 1.6, 1.7 in this, or 1.5, I don't view him much differently than the guys that are being taken at 1.12 and 2.1 and places like that.
Chris?
Yeah, I'm in the same wavelength there. Matt Harmon dropped his success route tree for Brian Thomas. There was a lot of green in there. He does a lot of good things. Good, more than just stretch the field, but that's where a lot of his success came with LSU. Like you mentioned, Gator, they asked him to be that possession wide receiver. Jaden Daniels last season, or the 2022 season, wasn't necessarily pushing the ball downfield. 2023, that's something that he did a lot more of. So we got to see Brian Thomas be this hot name in the streets come rookie draft season. But again, man, if he doesn't end up on a team where the quarterback just can't push the ball downfield, I'm going to worry about a bit of his production. Give me Brian Thomas on Tampa Bay. Give me Brian Thomas on maybe even Arizona in the back end of the first or possibly the second with one of their picks. And I'm going to feel good. But you put Brian Thomas in a situation where you got this dink and dunk quarterback play, I'm not going to feel great for Brian Thomas's outlook for the 2024 and beyond season.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. I think I'm moving him back a little bit. I don't think I have him as wide receiver 4. I think it's going to be more the Adonai Mitchell. It's going to be more the Xavier Worthy that's going to move into that wide receiver 4. Even the possibility of there's a guy that I really like that's still out there on the board right now. I'll bring him up in a little bit. I'll bring him up in a little bit.
I got auto-picked accidentally. I was thinking way too long.
You're not supposed to think on this. Let's see. We get over here.
You got him all crossed up with this super flex stuff.
No super flex. I messed him up.
I know. Well, what was like? I'll give you a peek behind the curtain. Here's what was really happening. There's a guy that I want, but it's like I don't need to take him this early. But I'll go ahead and take him because I could get him probably easily next round. But I'm going to take Rasheed Ali. You're going to have to scroll a little bit.
Yeah,
like it.
But
here's the problem. Here's the problem with that is I had this piped up for you because I have I was even telling Chris beforehand. I'm like, I've got a player that Garret is pretty high on that I wonder if he's going to grab or if we're going to be able to even talk about just for the simple fact of where he's going to be falling. Right. I wondered if you were going to grab Ali. If you haven't seen Garrett's video he just put out this past week, sorry about having to pause that draft right there, but
that was my fault. It's on me.
It's we are good. We're good. Let me get this draft board back in order while I'm doing this. There we go. But the whole Rasheed Ali, I loved your take that you put out. I believe it was a short that you put out for it as well. So. Go ahead and I want you to elaborate on Ali.
Yeah, Rasheed Ali. Look, he's not the biggest name, and he even lost out on some of the pre-draft buzz because he ended up having a bicep injury, so it messed up things for the Senior Bowl a little bit, messed up things for the combine. He's going to be full go once it comes time for training camp. But if anything, this helped depress his draft stock quite a bit, and maybe I got a type and I didn't realize it, but he reminds me of a poor man's TJ Spears. Like he really does. Watching him play, very quick, an elusive player, but is a little more willing to put his foot in the ground and go with that speed, maybe a little more than Spears does, but he's got that same ability to be able to get out of the backfield, make big catches down the field. So there's just a lot in his game to like. And he produced, like, he was an absolute stud as a sophomore. Took a whole year off, which then again, once again, he lost a lot of buzz because of that. Came back as a senior, looked just as good. And watching him play, I think he has good vision. Like, there's nothing in there that screams, stay away. And for somebody that you're going to be able to get, like, I took him in the third because I just didn't want to miss out. But I think more often than not, you're probably going to get him in the fourth. And for me, especially late in drafts, I love taking running backs. Nothing against receivers late in drafts. There's a plenty of good players. But when do you know to play your wide receiver 9 or 10 on your roster? Like, when do you know to play that guy? Because they're going to have 2 games where they're valuable throughout the year. Good luck figuring out which 2 those are. Whereas running backs, you know when they're the starter and when they're not. Like, you have the ability to be able to actually utilize those pieces. So I'm off my soapbox. I like Ali. I like the value. That's why I took him.
Yeah, I'm a big Rasheed Ali guy. I play a lot of college fantasy, C2C, so he's a guy that I got rostered quite a bit. So I love the love for Rasheed Ali. I'm hoping it helps my shares, the routes run, the receiving profile, the workload there at Marshall are all pluses in my eyes. I told my guy Rhett about him a couple weeks ago. He dove into him, and he came away just impressed at how good of a running back he was for Marshall. And another guy for me that I like to draft, I'd like to hear your take on him in these 3rd to 4th rounds of rookie drafts, is just a running back that stood out. Maybe not one of the most intriguing running backs when you look at his athletic profile per se, not the fastest guy, but Aundre Estime is just one of those guys, possesses the NFL size, has shouldered the NFL workload, lacks that top end speed that we may see guys like Rasheed Ali have, but he compensates that with an impressive number of breakaway runs, leading in yards per attempt, touchdowns, yards after contact. He's always in the top group of running backs when you're looking at the guys coming into the class. So where does a guy like Aundre Estime fit for you in your running back rankings this season?
Dude, I wanted right here to have this moment where we like connected, and I was like, yes, absolutely. But unfortunately, I'm not in on
not an Estime guy.
Here.
That's
I'm not. I watched this tape. And while I always appreciate a guy that is willing to play physical and get that yardage, that short yardage between the tackles, I just don't see how his game is going to translate to fantasy points. And I think that's the thing that I'm worried about. I don't think he's going to be deployed as a receiving back. So we'd have to have like a LeGarrette Blount type of role to be able to get a bunch of touchdowns. And I just think in today's NFL, there's so many guys that can do that. So I just don't see the path there for me. So I feel bad. I wanted to like be with you on this.
All good.
But I'm not in on him.
So basically you're saying Aundre Estime is a guy you don't want to see enter the running back room of your favorite running back because he's just going to be vulturing touchdowns.
Exactly.
I don't hate that at all, man. I don't hate that at all.
Get off me. Well, let me recap this 3rd round real quick. We had JJ McCarthy, Estime, as you just brought up, Michael Penix, JJ Crowling. Is it
Jacob Cow? I meant to pick Javon Baker, but I picked the wrong J wide receiver. That's on me.
Okay, then Baker went right after him. Walker, Bo Nix, McCaffrey, Will Shipley, Rice. Of course, we had Aligo, and then Burton, Germaine Burton, out of Alabama, wide receiver, 6 foot, 4'4", 40. Excuse me. And Jim wants to hear Garrett's and your take on Burton and why he is not projected to be taken any earlier.
Yeah, for Burton, he's another one with Corley that I haven't done my full deep dive yet. So I'm excited to get into him. So I don't want to speak out of school, but from what I've seen, I'm a little surprised as well. I like what I see out of Burton. I know that the production isn't as gaudy as some of the other players in the draft, but we've seen guys that don't necessarily always have incredible college production, but ended up being very, very talented pros. So overall, I am in on Burton.
Yep, I'm the same. I'm gonna draft him where his value is. If he's coming at me in a sweet spot in the third or maybe the fourth at a good value, I'll take him. In my opinion, I see him as a career for fantasy purposes wide receiver 3. He's a great wide receiver. He's going to do a lot of good things for you on your fantasy teams, but I don't see him getting to that point where he's a yearly mid wide receiver 2, possible back end wide receiver 1 guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's an Alabama wide receiver. We've seen what Alabama wide receivers, for the most part, do in the NFL. They're not that good in the NFL. They don't produce a ton of, or they get in trouble. I don't know what it is. No,
they get in trouble.
I stay away from Alabama wide receivers. When it comes to Alabama, I like the running backs, what they do and what they project to in the NFL. The Alabama wide receivers just don't project. They're outliers, the ones that actually do produce in the NFL for fantasy purposes. Don't get me wrong. They're good NFL players. They don't project into the fantasy roster for me.
Yep, that's fair.
All right. I wanted to bring up this guy. This is the guy I was talking about, Chris. Thank you for drafting him. Jalen McMillan out of Washington, 6'1", 40. It's a 4.47 40. My personal thing on him, man, I really like this kid. The biggest knock on him is he's missed games, and I know the best ability is availability. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the beginning of this season last year, 20 receptions, 311 yards, 3 TDs in 3 games before he missed a bunch of games with a knee injury. That's when Jalen Polk, that's when Odunze just took over the game for Washington. But this kid was good for 2 years prior. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on Jalen McMillan? And is it because those wide receiver class is just so deep that he is falling into the 4th round in some of these drafts?
Yeah, he is another one. I mentioned earlier, I prefer to take other positions other than wide receiver late in my drafts, but he is a receiver late that I would consider taking because I do think he's a talented player. And it's tough sometimes when you have a lot of talented receivers on one team, guys can get overshadowed. And I think McMillan got overshadowed a little bit because Odunze was just so good and so dominant. But McMillan's a player, smooth operator out there. I liked what I saw in his routes. I think his hands are more than adequate. So there was nothing on him where I was like off him. I don't know that he's as explosive as some of the other guys in this class, and maybe that's hurting him a little bit. But I do like McMillan quite a bit.
Chris, yeah. we see for the first time that he jumped ahead of Jalen Polk in a mock draft. So, I mean, we've done a couple of these, and Polk's usually going in that mid to late 3rd, and then McMillan, he's either in the 4th round or not getting drafted.
Yeah, and they're both talented guys. They're kind of almost the same player where they play on the field, where they're going to line up. McMillan is that, Jaden Reed guy for me this year that he's going to have to end up on a perfect situation for him to gain the value. The part for me with Jaden Reed last year was ending up on Green Bay, a team that heavily targeted the slot wide receiver. So if Jalen McMillan can end up in a position where he's going to be tied to a quarterback that's going to heavily involve those slot wideouts, not a guy that's going to be the opposite of the Brian Thomas wide receiver that's going to push the ball downfield a lot, I'm going to be excited for Jalen McMillan. And on top of that, to build on top of that, of the Jalen McMillan and Jalen Polk success, I don't know about you guys, but I am trying to acquire as much JSN as I can get in that Ryan Grubb offense on Seattle. If he can enter the role on the offense that McMillan and Polk had on Washington, I am going to be very excited for JSN this coming year.
Yeah, Jim loves the value for Polk there, getting him at what, 410.
Yep.
I don't hate the value there. I mean, I actually love the value there. Before we get to the 412, which I know Chris wants to talk about there, real quick, Jay Forrest God, what is your take on Xavier Legette, Garrett?
Yeah, Legette is an interesting player, guy that didn't produce much in his career up until this year. Really had a big breakout year this year. Another guy that's a little bit of a yak guy, get some yards after the catch, can make some big plays. He strikes me, though, as a player that falls into a similar category as a couple guys that have been drafted recently that I haven't necessarily loved. And I do worry that Keon Coleman could end up falling into this category too, where these are big guys that we think are really athletic, but maybe aren't as athletic as we actually originally thought they were, and don't have incredible ball skills. And at the wide receiver position, it's one of the most important things, being able to be a receiver with good ball skills. You look at some of the best guys in the league, almost all of the top guys, with the exception of Tyreek Hill and DK Metcalf, are guys with really excellent ball skills. And those two guys in DK Metcalf and Tyreek Hill are complete outliers from an athletic testing standpoint. So typically not a guy that I'm going to target, but at the 2.7, I don't hate it either, because at that point, once again, like I said before, at that point I'm looking for upside, and he definitely has it. Just not a guy I'm prioritizing in this class.
Yeah, before I let Chris go on this as well, I just want to let everybody know, if you have questions, we've got Garrett for about another 10 minutes or so. If you've got questions you want to get answered right now, hit those in the chat so that we can get Garrett's opinion on those. While you're doing that, go ahead and hit that thumbs up for us, hit that subscribe. We are absolutely appreciated. We are on the road to 1,000. You are the only reason we're going to get there. Chris, same question. What is your take on Xavier Legette?
I was kind of in on him pre-scouting process. When I was looking into the player, that's when I completely just faded Xavier Legette. When you get him into the open field, when you get the ball into his hands, he's electric. He's going to be able to get the yards after the catch. But the thing that caught my eye when I was watching Xavier Legette film was his movements off the line of scrimmage. And it's that kind of stuff that's going to absolutely wreck him in the NFL. He's just not going to be able to get himself into the positions that he got himself to at South Carolina at the next level. So that's the stuff that kind of worries me for Xavier Legette. Other than that, I love him when he's got the ball in his hands.
Jim saying the Polk was underrated in the C2C league. I'm not sure which C2C league he was in with either one of you. I'm assuming that's you, Chris. Did nothing but produce. Good to see him get some love. Absolutely 100%. Yeah. Calvin wants to know, Garrett, how do you feel about Xavier Worthy? Please and thank you. God, I love it when they use the proper oh shoot, what's the now? I can't even think of the word now. But the please and thank yous and sirs and ma'ams,
Yeah, good manners.
Manners. That's the word. I don't even have them. See, I don't even have them. I don't know.
Manners have been so non-existent with you that you even forget what they're called, AJ.
Non-existent. Let's go. Garrett, give me the answer.
Yeah, Xavier Worthy. I was pleasantly surprised with Worthy. I wondered if he was just a pure speed guy, but a much better route runner than I had originally given him credit for. Did a great job of getting open. My biggest concern is, why did he not get significantly better? Because he had an amazing freshman season, for a freshman anyway. But the numbers didn't really improve much, despite, in theory, having better quarterback play. So that was the biggest head scratcher, was why did he not get significantly better? But overall, I was pleasantly surprised with this film. And I do think he's a little bit more than just this burner that broke the record for the 40.
Yeah, I just wish he had a quarterback that could push the ball downfield and get him the ball when he created that separation, because so many times I watched the Texas games and I'm sitting there just screaming at my TV because either the deep ball is overthrown or it's underthrown by Ewers last year. And then he had some games with Malik Murphy, and then it's just last year was kind of a write-up for me production-wise for Xavier Worthy. He's like you said, he's one of those players that you have to go back and watch the tape because the analytics and the production profile just doesn't tell the whole story with a player like Xavier Worthy. And there's so many times, like I mentioned, where you're just pulling your hair out because he's got 3 yards on the DB and he's wide open and the quarterback just can't push the ball downfield. And I think Ewers' ADOT last season was 8.6, and before that it was 8.2. It's just not a good look for Quinn Ewers. So I'm kind of happy Ewers stayed in Texas for one more year.
You didn't want him to come out and go the same.
No, I didn't know. I think next year's class isn't as sexy quarterback wise. I don't know if there's that solidified QB1. A lot of guys got Shedeur Sanders there. I mean, it's all over the place. It's kind of like the running back market this year for the quarterbacks next year. So I think if he can take the step like we saw Jaden Daniels take this year, where he can push the ball downfield and be a little bit more accurate on those deep throws, Quinn Ewers can vault his draft stock.
Yeah, I love it. I just don't know if he's going to get the opportunity with, as Tyler puts in here, Arch just sitting there. But A-Rich to Worthy sounds amazing. Tony says that he's hearing through the grapevine, it sounds like Colts have interest in Xavier Worthy. Wouldn't be a bad thing for A-Rich. I mean, I know he's got a gun. Being a Florida fan, I know he's got a gun. Let's see, get over here to Jim's got a question. He says, should we be trading our late first to move up in this draft? And if so, is 107 the tier break? And I think we kind of discussed this a minute ago, and I think it was in a 1 QB. I think that tier break is at that 105, 106 area. If Garrett, anything?
Yeah, no, I agree. In 1 QB, it's right after those top 3 receivers and then Brock Bowers. That's the tier break there in 1 QB. So I'm totally with you on that.
Chris, you good with that, or you got more to add to that?
No, I agree.
Garrett, if the tier break is at 105 or 104 rather, so you got the 3 wide receivers, Brock Bowers, who is that guy at 1.5 that you're like, okay, if I cannot get rid of this pick, that's who I'm taking? As we stand right now, there's no landing spots,
Sure.
None of that information.
Yeah. Right now, if I had to choose, it would be really tough between Adonai Mitchell and Trey Benson for me. Adonai Mitchell's it was a tough watch because while there were times where he was just flat out lazy, which bugs the snot out of me, that's something that I don't think will fly at the NFL level. There are traits that he has that you just can't coach. I mean, obviously, he crushed the combine, everything at the combine, just absolutely crushed it. But more so than that, he was much more nuanced for a guy of his size than I expected him to be. I thought his routes were fairly crisp for a guy that big. Did a good job of going up and getting the football, and truly elite. And I don't throw this word around lightly. It was the highest score that I've given out to any receiver in the past 4 or 5 years. So truly elite at tracking the football. So being able to see the ball and adjust himself on deep throws to put himself in the best possible position to catch the football. He was great at that. And it's not just the deep ones, even some of the underneath stuff. You would see him adjust his body before the ball got there. Was always he was in the right spot all the time, which is, it seems like something easy to do, but if you've ever played outfield in baseball, it's not always easy to be able to track exactly where that ball is going to be. So he does a great job of that. So he right now is my wide receiver 4. Like I said, I'm not completely done. And all of that being said, he's my 4 though, but I still don't feel great about it because of some of those concerns that I mentioned. So talent-wise, easily there, but there are some yellowish flags that do have me concerned about Mitchell.
It's a big waving red flag for me when a player comes out and says, I don't run every route full speed because I want to stay on the field for a whole drive. Wave the flag. That's what happens to me. Chris, go ahead.
On Adonai Mitchell, I'm kind of in the same wavelength there with the thoughts on who he is as a player. Another guy that just got bit by the Quinn Ewers effect, and it kind of hurt just his production profile as a whole. So in that spot, I don't have a player that I'm looking to. If I can't move out of the 1-5, 1-6, 1-7 spot, there's not a player that I'm like, okay, I gotta walk out with this guy. That group of wide receivers, for me, once they get drafted, is gonna be where I place them in my rankings, because as of right now, it's just, you got your reasons for separating them, but if one of them ends up in just a bad situation, you're just gonna drop them down your board. So there's not one guy that I have to walk out with. I'd be okay with Thomas, Mitchell, Troy Franklin, Xavier Worthy, or one of the running backs as well.
Right on. I'm going to get to this last question from the chat real quick. Tyler says, who are your top 5 tight ends in this class, specifically 3 through 5? We had 4 of them go in this draft with Brock Bowers, Jatavion Sanders, Wiley, and then Johnson. Garrett, I'll let you think about this for a second. I know Chris's second tight end is Ben Stinnett. Did I say that right?
Ben Stinnett, yeah.
Stinnett. So talk to me about your 3 through 5 here. Are the other 3 on the board?
I got Sanders at 3, so he was picked in the second round there as the tight end 2. My tight end 4 in the class is Jaheim Bell out of FSU, and then moving up to tight end 5, Garrett picked him there with Theo Johnson. So that's my top 5 tight ends. I've got 16 of them ranked, so I'm pretty deep in the class. But for the top 5, those are my go-to.
Yeah, for me, I have Brock Bowers 1. I have Jatavion Sanders 2. So same there. I have Theo Johnson as my 3rd guy. Just one of those guys, as somebody that's played some Devy leagues and things like that, he's been a name that's been thrown around a long time. But seeing what he did at the Combine, just truly incredible performance. And when we're playing fantasy, we want guys that can go up and get the football, and that's the thing that he can do best. So I think the ceiling is incredibly high for Theo Johnson. So I currently have him at 3. For now, I struggle with this one. I currently have Cade Stover at 4. He was always in the right place, always doing the right thing, really solid hands, came up big on a lot of drives. I just don't know that he's athlete enough, and that's the thing that worries me. And so he could go anywhere from like my tight end 4 to like tight end 10, because all these guys are really kind of close for me. I have Bell, then I have Bell at 5.
Chris, I know you wanted to touch on a couple guys here. I'll let you get one question in before we got to get out of here, but I know at 412 we had Isaiah Davis fall off the board here. Very interesting to me, but I do know you had a question for Garrett on Isaiah Davis and a couple other players there. Oh no. Did we lose Chris at the last second there?
Uh-oh. As soon as you asked him the question.
Oh, are you muted or is it just me? I don't know. I see you moving now.
But I can't hear him.
Can't hear him. So dang it, Chris. Are you there? He's there, but I can't hear you. Dang it. That Wi-Fi, that Canadian Wi-Fi is something else. That's favorite FS or FCS pick. Isaiah Davis is included in this. It goes for 12 here. He's also got Dylan Lobb and Ryan. Is it Fournay? Any of those picks sound good to you coming out of the FCS?
I wouldn't say I necessarily love any of those guys, but Isaiah Davis is definitely the best of the bunch. When you look at a guy that is a really good downhill runner, that's Isaiah Davis to me. You get somebody that is built like you would want a running back to be built. He's got more build-up speed than that quick twitch speed, but with a full head of steam, I think he can get some things done. He's Estime, when we talked about Estime earlier, I think he's a better version of Estime for an NFL team. There's some nuances and differences to how they play, but for an NFL team anyway, he's kind of a offshoot of what you would want, that more physical bruising back. So I like Isaiah Davis more than an Estime here, but we'll have to see what kind of draft capital he gets. Oh, now I think you're muted, Jay.
No, that's just me being stupid. Do we have Chris back though? I just want to know if we have volume back on Chris yet, because that Wi-Fi, that Canadian Wi-Fi, is hurting my feelings right now. I see him moving. All right, Garrett, let's close this thing out here. Do not forget to subscribe to Fantasy FFL over there on YouTube or right here on YouTube. If you are not already, let's fix that ASAP. We are on our way to 100 or to 1,000 subscribers. Wednesday nights, you have Who's Your Caddy, our DFS for golf at 9 a.m. No Pun Intended comes on Wednesdays, our flagship show at 7 p.m. Mock It Like It's Hot Saturday mornings, 11 a.m. Sunday mornings, we have Dynasty After Party at 11 a.m. And, of course, you have us at 10 o'clock on Monday. Garrett, let the viewers know where they can find you and when you're coming back to Mocking with the Stars.
You can find me on the Twitter or on the X machine at Dynasty Price. All my work, everything I do, it's over at Dynasty Nerds and dynastynerds.com. And I'll come on. Gator's my guy. So when Gator puts out the bat signal, I show up.
It's crazy is people think I bullshit when I say this, but you are somebody that I have looked up to in the very beginning, and a lot of people don't know the story that Mike Bauer is the one that actually introduced us from Dynasty Rewind, and
true.
It was just a cool little moment for me as I kind of fanboyed there for a minute, as they would say. Garrett was fixing to do a show, and I was backstage. Mike messaged me, he's like, "Hey, you want to come backstage for a minute?" It's like, "Yes, let's go backstage. It's Garret Price." But it was cool. Garrett took me under his wing literally from day one. I've been on his show on Better Sports. Done a couple different things. It's been an absolute blast, Garrett. I appreciate you not only as a friend, but also as a mentor. So greatly, greatly appreciate it. Chris is not back with us. Check out his stuff. Going over there, Fantasy and Frames. He does a bunch of stuff over there. Wednesday nights at 9 p.m., I believe it is. They still do in Fourth and Frames. You can check him out at FF Chris B over there on the Twitter machine. You can follow me at FantasyJ77. As I always say, you draft for talent, trade for need. We're not setting a lineup for 5 months. And until next time.